collaboration with Philip, Surya, and Susanna. They are the people running this wonderful program here. The series is called International Film Classics in the Human Condition. It so happened that I have taught this course in Canada for many years. And I have had groups of students from anything from 20 to 150 students in the class. And so the word human condition, for some of you, it may be a new word. It's a term that is often used to really describe how human beings have been conditioned by so many things. You know, we are all conditioned by our political structures, social structures, cultural structures, our ecology, our past, our sense of future. So these are, and oftentimes the idea of human condition, that there is a frailty to it, there are certain limitations, and so it's a kind of a negative, a certain negativism associated with it. So I would be in this series showing you 12 films. This is the first one we are going to see today. But over the next 4 months, Surya and others are coordinating and seeing where they will be. So watch out, which date and what day, and sometime we'll be here, sometimes in a bigger cinema. So please come. And the idea is that I will introduce the film and show you why it is an important film, and then we'll see the film together and then have some time for discussion about the film. What makes it a classic? What is so important about it? Because cinema is one of the earliest, is the most recent art form in the world. It's only 125 years old. It was first 1895 to 2021. And this particular film we're going to see today on the Waterfront is sort of halfway through. It's 1954. So you can see how it's almost 70 years old film. And so it's the youngest art form. People have been doing theater for almost 4,000 years, and been writing since 5,000 years, making poetry, dancing, singing, making paintings. Paintings go 50,000 years old. Paintings have been found in certain caves. But cinema is only 125 years old. But we all know, those of us who love cinema, studying it, trying to understand it, trying to appreciate it, that what extraordinary achievements have been made in this art form and continue to be made. Now when it started, 1895, since then human population has increased 5 times. That, to think of it, the human population at that time was only about 20% of what it is today. So more people are there, more people want to see it, more people are creating it. So all that is part of the great luxuriating contribution to cinema coming from every part of the world. India, as you know, some of you know, makes the largest number of films in the world. And many of them are in Hindi, they're also made in Tamil, in Bengali, and so incredible influence it has had. I grew up on cinema, in Indian cinema, and I used to think, my dream was to become an usher in a cinema. So I can see all the films all the time. And that was my hope and dream. It didn't come true, I became something quite different. But you know, I was very drawn to cinema. And then I continued that passion, that love for cinema, and wonderful films in Canada. And I'm not a filmmaker, but I certainly very much drawn to appreciating films. So today's film, On the Waterfront. How many people have seen this film before? Okay. It's one of the great classics of cinema. And I will share with you what makes it a great classic, On the Waterfront. It's, as I said, was made in 1954, just a few years after the end of Second World War. This is also the time that something very ugly was happening in the United States. There was a whole hoo-ha about people who were communists. And there is a McCarthyism. This is the period of 1950s McCarthyism. And they had set up, a Senate had set up a House committee for un-American activities. Anybody who was suspected of being a communist or a sympathizer, whether you were a writer or a filmmaker or an actor and so on, they were being haunted. And a lot of ugly things happened during that time. And this is the Cold War period that is unfortunately emerging again against China. But this was a difficult time in the history of United States and the world. And so that film came at that time. And the man who made this, Elia Kazan, an incredibly gifted film director, but he had spilled out some of the names of some communist names, sympathizers. And so there are a lot of people in cinema, in Hollywood, who were very critical of him. What kind of personality who were telling these names? So in a way, it is said that it is a sort of a self-defense, this film that he made. That how, because it's the story of a man who is also haunted by certain things around him. And I want to introduce this term conscious. C-O-N-S-I-E-C-N-C, conscious. And there is a freedom in the human rights, universal human rights code. There is saying freedom of conscience and freedom of religion. And people to this day, 70 years later, still debate what is conscious. We know what is freedom of religion is, that you may be a Christian or not a Christian, or you may be a Hindu, but what is conscious? And so what kind of freedom does it express itself? So here in this film, it's a film about freedom of conscience. So do I have the courage, do I have the daring to spill out something that will make some people absolutely made naked before the rest of the world? So it takes courage. And you'll see this man in the film, the hero, he goes through a lot of trauma to even fight with his own brother and with his own group of people, to say what he feels strongly, very deeply, that it must be said. This is true, and this is this. So the others say you have broken the trust, and then how you'll be punished, and so on. So it's a film about conscience in a way. And it was the first time, as far as I know, in the human history, 100 years ago, that there are some people who are conscious objectors, who say we do not want to fight in the war. And it happened, most of them earlier on in 1910 or so, 12, 13, 14, were British people, who said we do not want to fight in the war. And a lot of people, they said, incredible story, what happened to these people? How you refuse to fight in the war. And the others thought, you're a sissy, you're not a man, you're not strong, what is the matter with you, you're a coward. And now, of course, it has come to be accepted that those who do not wish to fight in the war should be given that right not to fight in the war. So this is a film you will see that exposes some certain things. So you see how it was a film that was very well received all over the world. Very well received, and in certainly the Western world, in Italy, in France, and the film, because the making of the film is very well, crisply made. And it's a crime drama, but it's very engaging. And what makes it special, Marlon Brando, who's the actor, he became considered one of the greatest actors ever. And since then he had made many other films, but he's a young man. He had been used earlier in A Streetcar Named Desire by the same director, Elia Kazan. But here he's just extraordinary performance. And this whole idea, what came to be known as a method actor, method acting. What does acting mean? I'm not an actor, maybe some of you are. But how do you imbibe the character of somebody else who is very different from you, and yet make the audience believe that this is real, this is, it touches your heart and your mind. And you'll see Marlon Brando's, all great actors have admired, saying he's incredible, what he's done. And this film is certainly much admired and talked about because of his acting and the manner in which he presents himself. So then, it's a political film, and I want to just make a few comments about what is a political film. We are all part of politics in a way. We all, can't deny it. Then what does politics mean? The power, how power exercises it upon us. There's a politics in there in an office, in a college, in a university, at home. There's politics, who wields power on whom. But political film, when we say political film, it's really how the state, the government, or the certain class of society wields power over others. And it could be misused or abused, but this is what, in a way, a political film. And we have been making political films since the very beginning. The very first film on the birth of nation, in 1915, the first major film in the USA, and it's about, you see how Ku Klux Klan, and many people thought it was incredible to tell the story how birth of nation, how USA came to become a nation. And now many people criticize it and say how ugly an interpretation has been given, because all political films tend to be quite controversial. Because some people feel this is what it should be, this is what ought to be, this is what really happened. So every one political film has been quite controversial. Now here then I mentioned the other one, Triumph of the Will, a German film by Daniel Raffenstahl made about Hitler. And then Schindler's List, which came about 10 years ago, about a person who tried to save many Jewish people during the Second World War. And then The Conformist by Bertolucci. And then Z, a Greek film, and If, a British film. So many of these things. So in a way, they're really power structure. How does power exercises itself, and what happens to the people? Are they diminished and they fight back, or they become conformist, or they fail, they accept it, or they become cynical? All those reactions that we human beings have to politics, everywhere. Whether you walk, you say, well, that's how things move, so you join in, or you fight back, or you rebel. So all these things, in a way, all these films, in one manner or the other, have explored these things. Here, the other films, Lives of Others, a German film, which we're going to show as part of our series. Then All the President's Men, which was about Nixon, what happened in the Watergate in the 1970s. A very engaging film about two journalists and their story, about their story. And then Chinatown, made by, again, about politics of water in California and what happened. Very, very, very fine work, very fine work. By
Polanski. Roman Polanski.
Roman Polanski, yes. Roman Polanski then left USA, some of you may know, there was a case against him. So then Manchurian Candidate, way back, famous film about. And then in India, Mother India, famous film, 1955. Anybody seen this film? Yeah, very interesting film. I saw it recently. I saw it when I was just a boy, but I saw it recently. I said, it is a very interesting film. It talks about zamindari, the land ownership, and the money lenders, and so on. And with all the, of course, Indian other things that are songs and dances and other things, but very engaging film. And to make it way back when, 1955. And interestingly enough, the film is made by a Muslim. And they call it Mother India. Now many Muslims are objecting to calling us saying Mother India. So that's idol worship and so on. So interesting. So I've filmed that many Indian films have been political films, as everywhere else. And political films can get into censorship, and then they can run into all kinds of problems, and films have done. But certainly there's no denying that people have tried to make an attempt. Then you have films that are about certain people. Citizen Kane, the famous film of 1941, which is the dynamics of what's going on. And then film Gandhi, and many of is very much a political film. Gandhi was a political figure, even though he was also many other things about him. And made by an Indian leader, but the film was made by an Englishman, English director. Very unusual, very, quite remarkable. And then Lincoln, made about 10 years ago, about Abraham Lincoln and the whole idea of abolition of slavery way back in the 1860s. And then Malcolm X, amazing, about famous Muslim and black leader, quite different from Martin Luther King, and his story. And then Lawrence of Arabia, and Nixon, and Milk. Anybody seen the film Milk? Yeah, you know, it's about a gay person. In California. He's also a politician. Now, every time we have new movements happening everywhere. Our body is quite remarkable. However much you may feel negative, but there are many things which we couldn't make things about. It's a film about a gay person and asserting himself, asserting his sexuality, and very well made film, a very engaging film, Milk. So then other films that a different take on the same issues. The Battle of Algiers, during the occupation of Algeria by the French and the war that went on for many years. And Dr. Strangelove, we saw it here. Philip showed it here in our group here. Dr. Strangelove, or How I Came to Love the book. And Do Bigha Zameen, that's an Indian film, Hindi film, way back, made in 1953, Bimal Roy, who had made many interesting films. They're very conscious. He was a Bengali, very sort of leftist, but also trying to tell stories about the relationship between landowners and money owners and so on. And then On the Waterfront that we're going to see today. And then this last film, Divided We Fall, a Czech film, made about 15 years ago. And we were going to show this film. Very fine work about what happened to the Jewish people in Czechoslovakia. But told in a very personal, very warm, sometimes very humorous way. So there are a whole range of things, the spectrum of emotions that films have been able to capture and share, and then we share it with our friends and other audiences. It becomes very fascinating. Okay, so this is the film series. I'm just quickly showing you. So today we are going to see The Waterfront. And then, as I said, we don't know quite yet because Surya and Philip decide when it's going to be. But I thought I'd quickly share with you. We are going to show Babette's Feast, a film from Denmark. A very unusual film and much talked about film when it came, based on a short story and made into a very unusual film. And then Color of Paradise from Iran. Anybody seen this film? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Very about a child who's blind. And the special gifts that he has. I've shown this film many times in my class and at many different audiences. Amazing film. And this little boy, his acting, sometimes you see, I'm certainly mesmerized by how children, small little children can do amazing things on the film. And then the directors who can bring out that things. Satyajit Ray was famous for working with children. Amazing, so many of his films are children and how he brings out so beautiful performances. Satyajit Ray, the film director, Indian film director. Ray, Bengali, India's greatest filmmaker. And then we have La Strada, a famous Italian film, Fellini, 1954. When the new Pope was elected 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, he was asked, what is your favorite film? He said, La Strada. Very amazing film. Very different in some ways by other Fellini films, and very simple and it's very touching film, very spiritual film, very amazing film, and beautifully acted. And it's soon after made in 1954, and there's a lot of poverty in Italy after the war, and capturing that. So, and then Coming Home. It's about the Cultural Revolution in China and what happened to a couple. Very good, beautifully made film. Okay? I hope very much that every time we show a film from that country, that we have some people from that country who join us, that will bring us extra perspective to it. And I'm very much hoping that our friends Anandi and Tochun and others will come and be here when we show that film. So we ask them questions, we understand better, we know the context a little better. Very important. Very interesting, complex film, very well made, and as I said, I've seen it 3 or 4 times in the different audiences. So it'd be really nice to see it with people from that country. And then we have a Monsoon Wedding in India, made by an Indian filmmaker, Naya, who was from East Africa, settled in the USA, but made many films. She has been with Indian topics. And this is the first time, as far as I know, certainly in an Indian film, that they talk about sort of child exploitation, sexual exploitation in the family. And how do you cope with it? You know, it's the first time. It's a very difficult topic and very delicate topic. People refrain from, I would say. And then we are now discovering, unfortunately, that so much child abuse has gone on in every society, whether it's in the church, or it's the Hare Krishna people, or it's in this group or that group. So, my God, what's all going on here? And who has the daring to tell it? Who is the daring to tell it? So Monsoon Wedding, a very delicate film, I thought very well made. And so we shared it. And then Shine, about a musician from Australia. It's supposedly based on a real story, life story, with, of course, certain freedoms that every artist takes. And very fine work, very fine work. And then Divided We Fall, I just mentioned earlier to you, from Czechoslovakia, about 15 to 17 years ago it came. And just the whole notion of human being, the unity, division, relationship, and then how do you cope with it. Very fine work. So I hope really each one of them. The piano. Anybody seen piano?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. She's just come up with a new film. I've not seen it, but much talked about it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, fantastic.
There you go. Very amazing, unusual woman film director. She filmed in New Zealand about a time. Huh?
The Power of Dog.
Power Dog, yeah. But this film, The Piano, at a time when the white people, the Europeans, were settling in New Zealand, and they were, so it was about a bride, male bride, that has been sent from England to be married to a man. It's a very unusual film.
Who's the actress in this film?
Nicole Kidman.
Who's the actor?
Nicole Kidman, no?
Yeah.
No?
Not
Oh,
Kidman. She's won an she won the Oscar earlier.
it's okay.
Escapes.
It's okay.
Yeah, but she's very good at it. Extremely fine work. Very fine work. Each one of them, really, I feel.
Chapman.
Chapman. Something
Chapman.
like that.
The name of this lady, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyhow, why we say all these films, and each one of them really is not it's not an ordinary film. Each one is full of so much to observe, so much to understand, so much to appreciate, and so much to. It's not only technical aspects, but it's poetic aspects, it's cultural aspects, it's a relationship to literature at that time, and so on. So, The Piano, The Lives of Others, a German film. And this is set in East Germany. Since then, of course, there's no more East Germany, but all went on, and what happened to the writers and creative people. And very well made film. A young man, the man who made it, he was only 28 years old. Okay, and I was reading the biography, I said he couldn't have possibly experienced any of this, but to be able to show this, wonderful. That's the great gift of imagination, that even if you have not lived through something, that yet still be able to capture it and share it with us. A wonderful gift. And then The Seventh Seal, of course, one of the most famous films, Sweden, 1956, by Ingmar Bergman. Still much talked about. What does it mean? How does it mean? This first time, I think, as far as I know, first time death has been shown as a living presence, living person in the film. And he's playing chess. And very many things. I have written about it quite a bit, and then if people come, I'll be happy to share my article on it, and compared it with the story of Arjuna in Mahabharata, and the knight who's come back after feeling that he's been all a betrayal, and he's feeling very, very unhappy about what went on in the Crusades. So, it is very, so Dead Poets Society. You know, this is the great actor. Do you know who the actor is?
Yeah. Robin Williams.
Huh? Robin Williams. Yeah. You know, Robin Williams, amazing, gifted, incredible genius. He committed suicide. He was 61. This is about 7-8 years ago. And I wrote a piece about him, that, you know, he was a great comedian, and sometimes we feel that a comedian must be full of laughter all the time. And then when he committed suicide, so many comedians were writing in the newspapers and saying that underneath that, you know, behind the laughter, as you're trying to make everybody laugh, there's a lot of pain also. And people don't know that. So it came as a great shock when he committed suicide at the age of 61. Very incredible genius. Incredible genius. But the story in the film itself is very different, very amazing film. Dead Poets Society. So then we have these 12 films. I hope people come. You know, the idea is that we share, we see it with mature eyes, interested eyes, as we share great music, or we share great poetry or literature, and then we feel enriched by it. Okay, so this is it. So today we will just see the film, as I said, but really watch out every aspect of the film. What is sometimes forgotten, acting for a film is different from acting in theatre. Okay, because sometimes you can have the last scene shot first, or you know, bungled around here and there. And so some actors, there is a famous line which I'd like to share with you, Laurence Olivier, the great English actor. He was very famous as a Shakespeare actor. And then he suddenly been invited to act in cinema, and he found it very frustrating. He found it very frustrating because he's used to, rehearse 3 months, and then you give a performance for 3 hours or 2 hours, and everybody just mesmerized by his work. So he said, in the famous line, he says, acting for cinema is like achieving orgasm in parts. He says he's never, So it's, I'm not an actor, but certainly you feel a certain frustration of a person who, the eloquence of words and the eloquence of movement that is part of the theatre. They're very different in cinema, and yet, of course, both have achieved wonderful things. So here, please watch almost every actor in this film. They're really amazing things. Some have only there for a minute and a half, but you say, oh, amazing. Their presence is so strong, so well done, very well edited, and the story is, it's a crime drama, but a crime drama that reveals so many things about the human condition. Okay, so we'll continue with our conversation and further after the film is over. Okay, thank you. Enjoy.